Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to summarize where the Bible describes nuclear war. I've been covering this topic over many different posts here and there, but I want to go into deeper depth to focus on just this one particular issue to bring out all of the places where nuclear war is described in the Bible and some new content that I have not covered before, including what I believe is a fresh, unique interpretation of the parable of the fig tree. If you've seen any of this anywhere before, I'd like to see that in the comments, so please comment. All right, so let's get started. Does the Bible describe nuclear war? So, this can be a difficult topic. No one likes to think about nuclear war, but as scary as it is, he has not appointed us to his wrath, us being those who have repented from our sins and are seeking him with all of our heart, mind, and soul, and to have the testimony of Yeshua. So, if you've seen my previous video, you know that during the fall of Babylon, that's when we are raptured out and we are spared from the nukes. So there's hope. You don't need to be thinking about beans, bullets, bunkers, and bullion. That is something that people expecting God's wrath rather than his mercy should be concerned about. So now would be a good time to think about repenting. First thing I wanted to cover is that the Bible defines words symbolically. That means you can't just use the dictionary definition of words in order to understand completely the meaning in various parts of Scripture. Words, phrases, adjectives all have deeper meaning, and you've got to search all of the Scriptures in order to piece it together. This is actually brilliant because it allows the meaning conveyed by the Scriptures to transcend any given language, transcend time periods, and preserves it over thousands of years, because the meaning is tied up in the relationships of the words versus any particular dictionary meaning that people might have at any given point in time. It also serves to hide the meaning of the Scriptures from those who aren't actually seeking it. So if you really seek into it, you will discover the meaning, but those who just read it at a surface level will miss it completely. So there is definitely reward for searching out his Scriptures. So I'm going to start with a brief overview to give you a flavor of some of the topics I'll cover, and then I'll go into greater depth. So we're going to start with Revelation 6 and the great sword, mushroom clouds, and fallout shelters. Go to Jeremiah 50, which we're going to link the symbol of a sword to the fire that consumes everything. We will revisit Zechariah 5, where it describes nuclear missiles, their dimensions, and their warhead, and how it flies between heaven and earth. Then we will go to Isaiah 9, where it defines wickedness. And then Isaiah 34, where it talks about the sword being bathed in heaven. And all these things link together, right? So sword is a symbolic word. Wickedness is a symbolic word. Flying between heaven and earth, dipped in heaven, smoke rolling up. All these things are key words. Zechariah 14 describes people being vaporized where they stand. Mark 11, the parable of the cursed fig tree, which I believe is symbolic of the fall of Babylon in a single day. Very lots of hints and key words linking figs to the mushroom clouds. And of course, Matthew 24 says, when you see the abomination, run to the mountains with haste. So those are the summary of the various verses. Now let's dig into them and see how it relates to nuclear war. The great sword of the red horse. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Revelation 6:4. The thing we need to realize is that on Judgment Day, God doesn't do things directly. He works through the nations to bring judgment on the nations, just like he used Babylon to bring judgment on Israel, and then he used other countries to bring judgment on Babylon. He is going to use an alliance of nations to bring judgment on Babylon the Great. And so his weapons, God's weapons, I believe, are nuclear weapons, and that's what we're going to explore here. I think this great sword indicates a great weapon. All right, so let's look at some more context from the same chapter. I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. Hell might be like fire and flames. And power was given unto them over a fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword. So we're now linking back to the sword. So all these horses are linked together, right? You've got a great horse that causes people to fight each other with a great sword. You have death and famine that follow the nuclear war, right? They kill with the sword, hunger and death. And with the beasts of the earth. This is another one of those symbols I was talking about. When you see prophecy talking about the beasts of the earth, it's talking about the Gentile nations. Whereas a surface level reading, you might think wild animals. No, it's talking about the Gentile nations are what's going to kill a fourth part of the earth. And then I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, which just means seismos, or a shaking or commotion. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as of blood. Revelation 6:12. So what we know from the USGS is that a nuclear explosion can cause an earthquake, and even an aftershock sequence. However, the quakes induced by explosions have been much smaller than the explosion and aftershock sequence produced by fewer and smaller aftershocks than a similar sized earthquake. Right, so nuclear weapons create earthquakes. Anytime Revelation is talking about the earth moving and shaking in various places, it could very well be talking about nuclear bombs going off, causing the earth to shake. So that's just a point to consider every time we see this, because we're going to see this shaking, and later I'll show further verses that confirm that. I actually think I forgot to include that. All right. And the stars of heaven fell unto earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. The phrase fig tree casting her figs is another symbol that links this verse to other passages in the Bible that support a nuclear interpretation in Jeremiah and Isaiah. We will visit those passages later. But when a nuke is dropped, there is a mighty wind which can reach up to 300 miles per hour. You can see right here an atomic aftershock or shock wave just destroying everything in its path. I think that's what the mighty wind is. All right. So the stars of heaven falling to earth is a picture that could easily describe nuclear missiles falling from space or multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles. Here's some pictures of that. And then it says, and the heaven or sky departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island was moved out of their places. So mountains are where the bunkers are. They're going to be nuking those bunkers. Islands all around the world where the elite are hiding, perhaps have their bunkers there. And when these nukes go off, the air rolls up like a cloud in a scroll. This is the sky rolling up as a scroll. And then immediately after that, the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man, hid themselves in dens or caves in the rocks of the mountains. They're going into their fallout shelters. That's exactly what you would expect after a mushroom cloud. Right? So that's just the first chapter in Revelation. It's a pretty good interpretation supporting nuclear war, but let's confirm it, right? Establish everything by 2 or 3 witnesses. But first, let's review some Hebrew homographs. Woman versus fire offering. So before getting to Zechariah 5, a brief introduction to Hebrew is required. A homograph are 2 words with the same spelling, but perhaps different pronunciations. The original texts lack the vowel points, which were not added until about 600 AD. This means that the vowel points are part of the tradition of men, the verbal tradition, and are a best guess given the context. Substituting woman for other translations of the word can create some humorous translations. So you can see they've got the same letters. The only difference between them is that woman has this little T under it, and sacrifice burnt in its entirety has 3 stars under it, and of fire has nothing under it. I guess there's this other dot here that's present. But you can see in the original text, it just has this, of fire. So let's look at how Jeremiah defines the great sword as fire. A sword is upon the Chaldeans, this is Babylon the Great, says Jehovah, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars, the propagandists, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in her midst. And they shall become as a fire offering burnt in its entirety. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Now, I went here and put the text without the vowel points there because that's what it actually says. But your translation will probably say, and they shall become as women. Can you imagine the humor of a great sword that turns liars, mighty men, horses, and chariots, and all the mingled people into women? Nevertheless, this is how most translations interpret the verse. I'm guessing the people of 600 AD thought it made everyone into girls or weak or something. I don't know what they were thinking. But they definitely didn't think very highly of women. I submit to you that this verse clearly links the definition of the sword used to destroy Babylon at the start of the Great Tribulation with nuclear weapons. The sword is turning everything into fire and burning it completely. Chariots, horses, people, and they shall be dismayed, and everything will be completely burnt. All right, now let's look at Zechariah's flying scroll. This is from Zechariah chapter 5. Again, I looked up and I saw a scroll, a migula, flying in the air. This is a migula. It's a single roll scroll. And that's what it looks like. And the angel said to me, "What do you see?" And I answered, "I see a flying scroll. Its length is 20 cubits, which is 34 feet, and its width, which is its circumference, is 10 cubits, so a diameter of 5.5 feet. That's Zechariah 5:1. That is the precise dimension of all the world's nuclear ICBMs. They're all about 34 feet by 6 foot diameter. Then he said to me, "This is the curse that goes forth through the whole of the earth." Keep in mind, curse, plague, that's another symbol that is referenced in various points. So when you see that in the context of the end times, it could very well be talking about Zechariah 5. So people are going to be falling left and right, is basically what this verse is saying. "I will bring it forth, says the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter the house as a thief," like a thief in the night maybe, "and into the house of him that swears falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and it shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof." That is an intense fire to burn the stones and to consume it all. So, tying it to a thief in the night is another one of those symbols that can link verses together and clue us in to what's going on. He's going to come like a thief and consuming the stones, very intense fire. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said to me, now lift up thy eyes, and what is it that goes forth? So what is it that's flying forward in this flying scroll? And I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah. An ephah is a 6-gallon container of dry goods, or a payload, that goes forth. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance throughout all the earth. So this is not some spiritualized scroll. This is something that exists all over the world. It resembles it. And behold, there was lifted up a talent, which is about 75 pounds, of lead. Now, uranium decays to lead. And he says, and this is a fire offering. Your Bible probably says woman. This is a fire offering to be consumed fully, that sitteth in the midst of the payload. So you've got 75 pounds of lead sitting in the middle of a 6-gallon payload. Then he said, this is wickedness. Wickedness is another symbolic word. We will define that in a minute. And he threw it back down into the middle of the ephah, the payload, and threw a lead covering on its opening. That's like the covering or the protective layer around nuclear weapons to protect the operators and to prevent them from being detected. Then I lifted up my eyes and look, behold, there came 2 flames, or things of fire, 2 fires. And the wind was in their wings, or the flames, the wind was in the flames' wings, or the flames' feathers, or their contrail. For they had feathers like the wings of a stork, or a long trail of feathers. And they lifted the ephah, the payload, between heaven and earth. And this is a visualization. You can imagine, depending on your perspective, you might only see 2 of the 4. There might be other ICBMs that only have 2 flames that come out of the bottom. I believe this is one from North Korea. And I said to the angel who was speaking to me, where are they taking the ephah, the payload? So in the verse that follows, I include some alternate Strong's definitions, and I link to the Strong's definition so you can get an idea of other ways that this could be understood. And he said unto me to build it, which is a fire, a house. A house can be meaned within. So build a fire within the land of Shinar, which means Babylon. And it shall be established, which could mean completed, fixed, made ready, or arrived, or delivered. And it could be, and set thereupon, which means deposited, left, placed, thrown upon her own base, a spot on the ground. So to just summarize it briefly, and he said to me to build a fire within the land of Babylon, and it shall arrive and be thrown down upon the ground. Given how hard it would be to describe an ICBM to someone 200 years ago, imagine 2,500 years ago. Now imagine being all the scribes responsible for translating this over so many years. The measurements and the description of the shape alone narrow things down today. With modern context, let the reader understand, as Matthew says. But this is the only interpretation that makes sense compared to the nonsense of stuffing a woman in a 6-gallon basket with 75 pounds of lead and putting a lead cover on it because she is so wicked. That is nonsense. It comes from not having context necessary to interpret a simple word, fire versus woman. All right, let's look at the meaning of wickedness. He said this is wickedness, this is the uranium, the payload. So when you search for how wickedness is defined in the Bible, you go to Isaiah 9:18. Surely wickedness burns like a fire. It consumes briars and thorns. It sets the forest thickets ablaze so that it rolls upward in a column of smoke. Here we go again, rolling upward in a column of smoke. The sky rolled up like a scroll. And here are pictures of natural forest fires and the mushroom clouds produced by these forest fires. That is what wickedness is defined as. So Wickedness is what goes forth in the flying scroll. So the flying scroll lands and it delivers wickedness, one of these forest fires at its destination. And how exactly does the Bible define briars and thorns? Remember, everything is symbolic. So when it says briars and thorns, that should be a clue. And Yeshua described it for us, defined it. And other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns, they are those who hear the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches and the desires for things enter in and choke out the word, and it proves unfruitful. So basically the wicked, those who are worldly, those who are deceived by riches and desire riches above all else, the land of Babylon the Great, are those who the curse or wickedness is going to consume. So now we have the Bible describing people being vaporized where they stand. And this shall be the plague or curse described by Zechariah 5, wherewith the Lord will smite all the people who have fought against Jerusalem, all the Gentile nations. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand on their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. Here's a bomb victim from Hiroshima or Nagasaki that was vaporized where she stood. It's just like blown back by the shockwave and vaporized. And there are many pictures of this. And some people who didn't die in the blast, their eyes and their tongues did waste away in their mouth, and they were left permanently disfigured. It didn't kill them, but it did meet this description completely. All right, now let's get to the cursed fig tree. Now, all this talk of figs got me thinking, so I wonder if there's any relation to the parable of the cursed fig tree. So I looked it up, and I was shocked. I got a whole new insight and meaning that I've never seen anyone else present. So let's get into it. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Yeshua was hungry. Seen in the distance, which could mean seen in the far future, a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves. That's not a good sign for our generation, because it was not the season for figs. Well, that's an interesting phrase. We'll see that relates to Revelation 6. The stars of heaven fell into earth, even as a fig tree that casts her untimely or out of season figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind, the nuclear blast. Then he said to the fig tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. All right. And in the morning, the next day, as they went along, they saw that the fig tree withered from the roots. So in one day, the fig tree completely withered and died. Well, that's interesting. So, for the indignation or anger or judgment of Jehovah is upon all the nations, and his fury on all their armies. He has utterly destroyed them. He has delivered them to the slaughter. The host of heaven shall be dissolved. The sky shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their host and everything that's in them, skies, planes, bombs, missiles, shall fall down as a leaf falleth from the vine, and as the fig falling from the fig tree. That's Isaiah. So we've got Revelation 6, we've got Isaiah 34, both describing the judgment of Babylon and the complete destruction, the sky rolling up as a cloud. So we've got all those things tied with falling figs. All right, and so, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven, carried between heaven and earth, and it shall come down upon Edom and the people thereof. This is the curse to judgment. As this is, once again, the curse coming down from heaven. Forget why I put that there. Notice the parallel between untimely figs, mentioned in Revelation 6, and the cursed tree not being in the season. Also notice the curse, no one may ever eat from you again, is a parallel to the fall of Babylon described in Revelation 18 and Jeremiah 51. It says, and a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, terrified at her torment. Yeah. I might have had a copy and paste here. Woe, woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon. In 1 hour your doom has come. With much violence, great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. So, never to be found again, never to bear fruit again. And then we have, they shall not take a stone from thee, maybe because it's radioactive, for a cornerstone, nor for foundations. It will be desolate forever. So no fruit again. You shall bind a stone to this book and cast it in the midst of the Euphrates, and you shall say, thus shall Babylon sink, and it shall not rise. So we've got the angel throwing the millstone saying, thus shall Babylon sink and not rise. We have Jeremiah told to throw a stone throw the scroll in the river and declare that Babylon shall not rise. We have it being desolate forever. It shall be thrown down, never to be found again, from Revelation. And we have the fig tree where he says, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. So I believe that the fig tree is a parable about the fall of Babylon that will fall in a single day. All of its fruit it'll be completely consumed and dead because it did not have fruit. And the fruit it did have fell to the ground from a mighty wind. Which, interestingly enough, if there are any figs or any fruit on the tree, a mighty wind could be compared to the Spirit coming and harvesting the figs that are there in the rapture. So, very interesting parallel. As I'm reading it a second or third time, even more things are popping out at me. All right, the last topic here is the abomination that causes desolation. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Once again, let the reader understand is a reference that future context, the reader in the distant future will be able to understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. The radiation is terrible for milk. Cows, I think it just, it all gets absorbed and then delivered to the babies. But you see here that they have to go quickly. You don't even have time to go get your cloak or go back to your house. You have to flee to the mountains. Well, what does it mean to flee to the mountains? Well, that's another symbol. They hid themselves in the dens of caves and in the rocks of mountains. Go hide in the mountains. This is a sign that I believe that the abomination that causes desolation is a wicked fire that consumes everything, desolates. And that's what that is talking about. So, conclusion. Whenever you're reading about future judgments and you see the symbol sword is mentioned, keep in mind that it could be referring to the great sword that is bathed in heaven and consumes everything, including timber and stone, and vaporizes people where they stand. That is what sword means in the context of the future day of judgment, day of the Lord. So I think it's beyond clear that when Jehovah destroys the earth by fire, it will involve the use of nuclear weapons. He puts it into the hearts of the leaders of the world to bring this curse about, just like he hardened the hearts of Pharaoh to go after the Israelites as they're crossing the Red Sea. So for more detailed investigation into the fall of Babylon the Great, I've got this video here. This is my first one. I apologize for the poor aspect ratio. I've got this one about the Garden of Edom. So Babylon the Great and Edom will both be destroyed by nukes, if my understanding is correct. And when does all this happen? It will happen on Jeremiah's 70th Jubilee. There are 70 Jubilees. Daniel and Jeremiah both talk about that, which I believe is announced, or the consecrated fall of 2024, and that the Jubilee year begins 2025. I think all this could go down this fall. And for a complete understanding of the timeline that I've been able to piece together using Daniel's prophecies, please check out this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. I have more content coming. Thank you very much.